No matter how good your advanced weed control is when you plant native grasses, once you've planted, you can often have weed problems emerge. You can have things come on that create a challenge for your native grass seedlings. So right here, for instance, we've got a pretty abundant weed canopy. You can see it's, I don't know, thigh deep or taller, and it's dense enough that it's going to create a problem for native grass seedlings remaining viable and continuing to grow and survive. And so the key is, during the summer, we've got to be prepared to deal with these kinds of problems that maybe won't always come, but are very common. So we've got this really thick canopy of weeds here, at least thick in places. And here's what I want to show you is here are some native grass seedlings that are at this point probably, you see this one here, Indian grass. Over here we got another little fella, probably Indian grass again, and over here a third one. So we've got these three little native grass seedlings under here that are maybe, I don't know, 6 weeks old, I'd guess. Not much older than that. And they have a tremendous weed canopy over them. So the key thing is, during the seedling year, we've got to do something about this. We want those small seedlings to get ample sunlight. And so what we've asked this farmer to do is come in here and clip this weed canopy up above the seedlings. So that seedling's up maybe 10, 12 inches tall. We're going to set the mower right about here. Knock this down so those seedlings can get daylight. Now these native grass seedlings are still small, just like the ones I just showed you earlier. But what I want to show here is that the weeds, even though they're still present, they're all around me, they're not forming a canopy over these seedlings. So if we had an entire field that looked like this, some weeds, some seedlings, more seedlings here, there, here, I wouldn't be too concerned about controlling these weeds, other than perhaps keeping the weeds from going to seed in the case of annuals like these. But it's not a problem in terms of competition at this stage of the game. So we got to think about thresholds for control when we're facing seedling year weed problems. And as long as those seedlings are getting ample sunlight, they'll be fine, and there's no need to do any additional work.
Clipping or grazing are normally the preferred options for seedling year weed control, but there are some herbicide options that can be used without injury to the seedlings. Some, such as imazapic, 2,4-D, and the combination of metsulfuron and chlorsulfuron, can be applied to relatively small seedlings, but others, such as aminopuralids and triclopyr, should only be applied on very well-established seedlings, those that have an abundance of large tillers.
Grazing can be a good tool also to use for weed control in seedling stands, but there's a couple key points you have to remember. First of all, the weed you're trying to control has got to be palatable. It's got to be something that cattle want to eat. So vegetative stage crabgrass or Johnson grass, perfect time to use cattle. If those species have gotten mature, or you have unpalatable things like foxtail or goosegrass, it's not going to work so well. Regardless, if you're going to use cattle for weed control, always put a pretty high stocking rate out there that can control the problem in about 24 to 48 hours. We don't want to be out there longer than that. And finally, when the cattle are out there, be sure and pay a little bit of attention to be sure they're not focusing on the native grass seedlings themselves, but rather on the weeds. And if they're starting to bother the seedlings, go ahead and pull the cattle out at that point.